right, so welcome to Random Thoughts. I'm Yo. This is Celeste, who didn't do something with her hair. We'll leave it up to you to decide what it is she didn't do.
I didn't
Do you want to
braid
give
it.
any hints?
I didn't braid it.
Any hints? Come on.
It's not braided.
I don't think that's it, because that's too obvious.
Can we move past this subject?
Okay, we're going to move past this subject and move on to one that got me real riled up this week.
Oh boy.
Now, I'm sure everyone has heard about the tragedy that took place in Tucson
Yes.
a little while ago, where someone tried to assassinate a state representative. Trying to talk about something serious here, and you're playing with the chair. All right. Anyway, so you probably heard about that, and some people were killed and people were wounded, and now they're getting ready to hold the funerals for these people. One of them, a 9-year-old girl who was born on 9/11, was tragically killed in Tucson during this madman's shooting spree. So they're getting ready to do her funeral, and get a load of this. I still can't even contemplate this. There's a church that's based in Kansas that has made a name for themselves by protesting at military funerals. They're going to come and protest at this little girl's funeral.
What?
Yeah. Now, the reason they do these protests is because they say tragedies such as this are the judgment of God on America for all the sins that we're committing.
Who
so on and so
does
forth.
that? Oh my.
Okay, wait.
Really?
Wait.
Okay.
I want your opinion on this, but wait, it gets better. So, other groups in Tucson are saying that they are going to be there to provide a buffer to surround these families to keep the protesters at bay. Among those groups are several motorcycle groups based in Tucson. And it has even been mentioned that the Hells Angels are going to come to provide a protective barrier so that the family at this funeral can have a funeral in dignity, surrounded by, this is a direct quote, surrounded by peace and love.
Wow.
So, the setup here that I want your reaction on,
Okay.
the Hells Angels are going to come and help provide a sense of peace and love for a family at a funeral. And they're doing that by protecting that family from a church.
That's ridiculous.
That is so backwards, I'm looking for pigs to fly outside our window right now. There goes one
Oh wait,
now.
I think I see.
There
one.
it is.
There
Yep.
it goes.
I
This
mean,
is ridiculous.
Isn't that the craziest thing you ever heard? I mean, how does that make you feel when you hear something like that?
I mean, I've been struggling for words all this time, and I'm sure I'm gonna find a lot, especially after we're done recording, because that's usually
how
when
it
my
goes.
best
Yeah.
thoughts
Yeah.
come up. But that to me is not like a church. Okay, this is what the church is. It's not an actual building. It's not how it functions. It's the body of Christ,
Right.
and the body of Christ is supposed to show love. It's supposed to show hospitality. It's supposed to be reaching out to the world and preaching the message of the gospel, which is the fact that Christ came and took the wrath of God upon himself for us.
Right.
And that's the whole point. And the church is not just some stupid religious institution that should be protesting military funerals. Are you serious?
Or the funeral of a 9-year-old girl?
Are you kidding me?
I know.
I want to go punch that church.
I mean, the fact that it's even been mentioned that the Hells Angels are going to show up to help provide a sense of peace
Yeah.
and love and dignity.
Yeah.
And they're doing that by preventing a church from getting too close to
It's
this
like-
family. It's so weird.
It's like the two forces, right? You typically have like the world and
Yeah.
the church of,
Right.
the church. And it's like the world is in a way becoming what the church should be, which is a loving, buffering,
Well, I've heard, I don't know if you've heard this several times, but I've heard from hurting people sometimes when they're in the midst of a dark time, you often say, well, you should go to a church. And very often the response is, why would I go there? All they'll do is condemn and judge me. I don't need that in this time. And this whole situation in Tucson is like an extreme example of that. It's the world saying, we don't want the church around because they're not going to provide us what we need. We'd rather have the Hells Angels come and help protect this family, provide a atmosphere of peace and love while they try to say goodbye to this little girl that they lost tragically in a shooting. I don't understand this at all.
This makes me want to cry. Like I'm actually starting to tear up.
I know. I mean, I feel the same way. When I read that, I was pacing back and forth like a lion in a cage. Like, how can this happen? If anything, when people need peace, when they need comfort, when they need help, when they need an atmosphere of love, the first place they should think of going is the church.
Yeah.
And the really sad thing about the situation is that church in Kansas is making it tougher for the rest of us to say, we want to be there for you. They make all of us look bad, whether they realize it or not. we are guilty by association for the very fact that they are a
Yep.
church.
And like that's the problem when you get so caught up in politics. When you lose sight of Christ, this is what it becomes: is you completely ruin the initial banner that you're waving, which is I'm a Christian. But then you get involved with all this stuff. If you don't keep your core focus at the fact that Jesus Christ came and saved your butt, all right, like you get lost and you ruin it for everybody else. And you have to keep focus. It's not about religion. I don't know how many times I can say this, but
Yeah, waving that banner,
no.
waving that banner, or the way this church is doing it, makes it a banner that no one else wants to see. When you wave the banner of Christianity, other people are saying, I don't want that. I'd rather have the Hells Angels come and help me
If
out.
that's how they're going to be, I'd rather have the Hells Angels too. My goodness.
So it's a terrible situation, and all I can say for us is let's make sure, and I'm not saying that I agree with everything the world does, but even if, all right, let's take a hypothetical situation. Even if this funeral was for the most terrible person on the face of the planet, would that really be the right place and the right time to go out and protest and show condemnation?
Yeah, it's
A
something
funeral
like-
doesn't seem like the best place to do that for any reason.
What about that whole, like, Jesus, like teaching about, like, love your enemies and love those who persecute you? And I don't know that this
Love your neighbor
9-year-old
as
girl
yourself.
was persecuting anyone, but
Hard to imagine.
even if she was, you're supposed to love. Sorry, that's it.
Especially at a funeral, that is an opportunity for ministry to provide hope, to provide comfort. And so what I've taken out of this situation is I need to be, as much as possible, an exemplary example of what Christ came to show to this world. Why? Because I have to overcome the example of some of these other places. And that's tough. It's hard. But if we can, to the extreme, be a representative, an example, a mirror image of Christ, hopefully we can outshine some of these less than exemplary examples, such as this church that's coming to protest that. So my challenge for this new year is I don't want to be like that. I want to be like Christ. So much so that when people face a tragic situation like this, they say, can you help me? They come to the church and say, please, I need what you have.
Right.
As opposed to saying, please don't come near me. I don't want to hear your condemnation and your judgment.
Because it takes so much for people to get to that point, and if you spurn them, for real, this is what it is about. Okay, so you keep it on Jesus. It's a heart.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. You keep that focus and don't stray from that, because that's all that matters. You can get caught up in theology, you can get caught up in politics, whatever you want.
Hey, it's good to discuss that stuff. I have fun talking doctrine, theology, apologetics. I even have time to talk about politics and whatnot. But it cannot interfere with our primary mission here as Christians. And this whole situation is doing just that.
Keep the heart beating.
All right. So if you guys have thoughts or comments you want to share on this, you can do so.
Trying to make the heart beat. Sorry.
Okay.
Celeste at m88.org.
Or Johan at calvaryabq.org. Also send us the topics that you want our random thoughts on. They don't all have to be as heavy as this particular one, but
Sorry, I was fighting that temptation.
I was just so infuriated by this. Like, I just have to say something.
I'm gonna go pace the halls.
And so now I've put out my 2 cents. You can put out your 2 cents as well. And please pray for the people in Tucson who've been affected by this tragedy. They need that a whole lot more than they need protesting. And we'll see you next time on Random Thoughts. Hopefully I won't make Celeste cry.
I'm about there.